Hey, welcome to the shop. It's apparently a rite of passage to build your own welding cart, so this video is going to be all about my plan for creating one that works for my shop. These were just some rough ideas that I was working on. I'm going to hang all the cords off the front of it because I want to keep it as narrow as possible for my shop. Well, here's today's plan for the welding table. And essentially, at the back end, we've got two welding bottles mounted on the cart, the back of the cart, with room for TIG rod between them. And we've got an asshole working on the plan. No, an access hole for the wiring coming off the back of the welders. The TIG welder is a little bit longer than the MIG welder. The sliding drawer that's over on that table is going to fit right in here where the yellow-orange line is. So it's going to fit on the lower level. And in here somewhere we're going to have power boxes to mount both the 220 cords coming off of each welder. And then we're going to have a one-prong wire coming out, maybe some 110 power bars as well, so that, and then on the front of it we're going to hang the cords on a bracket that's going to go on the front, and a bracket that's going to go on the front there, some kind of a handle coming over the top or sticking out from the sides, not sure yet. Since it's going to be on casters, all four corners, it's going to move in any direction. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots of modifications, and I'm sure I've made lots of mistakes. The white marks are all the mistakes I've made, so sure lots of those will happen during fabrication, but we move ahead. Well, this was just a test layout to see if the things were square and if it would actually sort of fit together as it should. And these magnets don't work very well to keep things square. My most recent project prior to the welding cart was modifying this welding table by drilling all these holes for the fixturing period. I didn't do a great job, so they're not perfectly square, so I can't use them for layout, but I surely can use them for holding down other parts. Well, after an entire day of screwing around trying to get this bottom frame flat, I was finally able to accomplish it. So you can see that I press each corner and there's no rattling. So it was necessary to open up those joints, cut them open, re-weld them. Oops, no, it didn't work. Cut them open again, re-weld them again. I think I went through 4 iterations of that before I got it straight, but I finally was able to get it straight. And it's even acceptably square. Not specifically perfect, but certainly good enough for the kind of work that I'm going to be doing with this. And happily, I'm even able to line up the two within a tolerance that is acceptable to me. It's not perfect. Well, welcome back to the shop. It's a rainy November morning, and we have progress on the welding cart project, but we also have a catastrophe, or not a catastrophe, but a minor crisis. So let me just swap the camera around. I think I can do it while we're still recording. Apparently not. In these next few clips, I was talking about how the reality differs from the plans, how the legs are cut properly to length finally, how the casters will be mounted on this 1/4-inch plate, and how the plate's welded to the bottom of the frame, which may change its flatness, and how I managed to mess up welding in the first part, so it needed to be repaired. Trying to center these casters on the plate. It turns out that using the metric system is much easier and simpler than trying to divvy up fractional imperial measurements. So if you've not used the metric system for fabrication, give it a try sometime. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. There was a lot of mill scale to be removed off of metal. Turns out these paint stripper grinder pads are wonderful tools. If you've never heard of them, and I hadn't heard of them until a few weeks ago, give it a try. I don't think you will regret purchasing them. I don't remember whose video it was that introduced me to the Milwaukee Red pen, but it makes marks on metal, greasy metal, oily metal, dry metal, wet metal. It's a fantastic purchase. If you've never tried one, give them a try. Well, after I finished grinding and cleaning up the caster plates, I started to cut 1-inch tubing. And I really need to build a cut list so I don't waste as much tubing as I did, because I really wasted quite a lot of it. Well, there's the mess of all the cutting. Not all the cutting by any means, but all the cutting for today. So 4 on the upper piece, 5 on the bottom piece. I know this is an absurd layout, but I have to have 4 inches solid. I don't actually have to have it, but I want to have 4 inches solid there. I need to do a little bit more thinking on this one, but gonna clean up this joint and then probably call it a night. The wonderful thing about these metal cold saws is that they just cut through metal like butter. They're terrific, but the bad news about them is that they just spread chips and pieces of metal everywhere, and you just have to constantly clean up, or your dog will be biting his paws all day forever. Unlike a lot of people who make YouTube videos, I haven't got any camera positions that work well for me, so I just set up a little tripod wherever I can. So sometimes we just don't capture what's going on, and sometimes we do. So every little change induces wobble. I have to have these on there. I just don't want to do it. Quite a few years ago at Costco, if you can believe it, I was able to buy a vise for not too much money, maybe $45 at most. It's a 6-inch jaw, I believe, and it swivels and it's got a pipe holder. So the guy that sold me my welding table put a receiver hitch on it, and I bought a piece of plate steel, mounted the vise to the plate steel, and put a piece of square tube underneath it so I can mount this thing in the receiver hitch and swivel it on the table. So I swiveled it on the table, and that allowed me to hold the frame vertically, which was just amazing because it let me work on the frame in a way that I had not anticipated, and it made it much easier to fasten and fixture things and to weld them. So we moved along, and I was very pleased to make it work like that. So here I'm finally welding on the little 4 pieces of 1/4-inch plate that are going to hold the casters. I was able to do it without them affecting the flatness of the base frame too much, which pleased me. The welds were ugly, but c'est la vie.
the life of me, I could not find the manual for my Drill Doctor 750X. It's been ages since I've used it to sharpen things, but ultimately I found it online and sharpened the drill bit properly. So using the holes that I had pre-drilled before I welded the plates onto the base layer, I was able to drill and tap for the casters, and it all seemed to work out pretty well.
And I'm very lucky to have a lovely wife who comes down and brings me my lunch without me having to ask for it. Thank you, hon.
You know, I really wanted to use a power drill to do this tamping because there was 16 holes, and I'm not the world's most patient guy, but I also did not want to have a broken tap and the problem that would be involved in trying to solve that. So I had to kind of do it slowly, and it worked. So once the drilling and tapping was done, there was, of course, oil everywhere. So it was time to wipe that down, clean the welding table, and get ready for the next part of the project, which was spacing the 1x tubing on the top frame and the bottom frame, trying to make it look consistent. So a little bit of measuring and estimating, and getting it laid out, and then I think it was time to do the welding.
Here's where that Costco vise swiveled and turned vertically came in so handy.
Please let me out. Let me out. I promise to be a good boy.
No, not likely.